Good afternoon, Facebook friends. Good afternoon, YouTube followers. Good afternoon. Hope you're having a great Saturday and a great weekend today. Good afternoon to you. Welcome to God's Girls, Women on a Mission, Wives with Wisdom. Good afternoon. As we always ask, share, invite a friend to watch, to relax with us today. Let us know you can hear us. Let us know you can see us. Let us know that everything is just working so smoothly. Let me know that everything is fine before we get into today's business. Hope you are doing well today. Hope you're doing great. We really hope that your year is still starting great. We're still at the beginning of the year, so hope it is starting great this Saturday afternoon, this January. Welcome to God's Girls, Women on a Mission. We are indeed trusting God for a great year this year. I mean, we lived through we've been living through lockdown for almost a year now, and we're kind of getting used to it, but we are still trusting God for great and beautiful things in our lives and in our communities and everything else. So grab your coffee, grab your tea, grab your water, grab your juice, whatever you need to grab on to keep yourself hydrated today. Get it before we start, because I wouldn't want you to miss anything. I would want you to miss anything today whatsoever. Grab what you gotta grab. And as you're grabbing it, share, invite a friend to join us this afternoon. Today, we are going to be talking about something that I believe is needful in your life. Our topic today will be financial investment and increase. Financial investment and increase. And I believe that you need money. I don't know about you. I just don't need it. I want it. I want more of it. So if you know anyone that can do with investing in their finances, starting to think about it, someone who's never thought about investments, who never heard about investments, someone who doesn't know where to start, what to do, what is going on with what the news is saying about all these financial crises, the recession, what is that all about? Invite that sister, invite that mother, invite that auntie, invite that brother, invite that uncle. Let them come on board today, because we're in not just for a ride, but we're in for mind transforming, mind shifting session, mind awakening session, because I don't believe that, especially as children of God, we should suffer as the world suffers. I believe that we should always seize the opportunities to sow in regards to investing in something. Even when things are hard, there's always an opportunity. We've learned over the years that in a crisis, there's always an opportunity. So what are the opportunities out there for our finances this year? I don't want to miss them. I don't want you to miss them. I don't want you to sleep and slumber and think that you're going to wake up and just go back to your job and realize that, oh, my job is actually gone. What happened? What's happening? So invite everybody that needs to watch this afternoon, and so we can be rich together. I want to be a millionaire and hang out with only millionaires. And then, so hopefully you'll be one of them. So I'm excited today about our guest, because she is someone who is well invested in knowledge regarding finances. So bring along everybody that can do with this information today. Once again, if you're joining us, welcome to God's Girls, Wives with Wisdom. Indeed, it is a good day. It is a good day because it's my birthday. To God be the glory. It is my birthday. I am thankful to God for another year. It is also one of my sisters in the Lord, my great friend, someone I love dearly, someone I trust, someone I've been doing life with, my dear friend, Reverend Wanu Adefola. If you've heard of her, if you've seen her at God's Girls, I'm sure. If you've come to God's Girls, I'm sure you've seen her. You've heard her minister. You've heard, if you go to a church, I'm sure you know that she's an awesome person. She is a great friend of mine. And I am just wishing you, Reverend Wanu, if you're watching, if you watch later, I am wishing you a happy birthday, Twinnie. I hope you're having well. I know you're having a great day. We love you at God's Girls. We've had you at God's Girls countless times, and we appreciate God for your life. We honor God for what He continues to do in your life. And we are praying for greater things for you even this year in the name of Jesus. Have a blast. Have a blast. And as I said to her this afternoon, that I hope you're not spending the day preparing a message. But yeah, happy birthday to my friend there. She's an awesome person. If you know her, wish her a happy birthday. Hi, Debbie. Good afternoon. Good afternoon. Thank you for loving me. Thank you for your happy birthday. Thank you for your gift. You are awesome. You're awesome. Let me not do shout outs. I'll get in trouble again. Thank you once again, everyone who's joining us today. Thank you for joining us today. We really are in for a great talk today. We're in for a great talk. So share, like. Wives with Wisdom is a platform that we use to equip, to encourage each other as sisters in the Lord, especially as mothers, as wives, as singles, as anything female, to encourage each other to walk in wisdom in every area of our lives, godly wisdom, godly principles in our lives, so that we can be successful in all areas, so that we can be whole and successful as we follow God's principles in how we ought to live our lives. I believe that there is a principle for every single area of our lives, that if we ought to sow that seed in that area, we will flourish and we will live a good life and even live a good and godly inheritance for our children's children. I truly believe that wisdom is truly the principal thing. And for the lack of wisdom, for the lack of knowledge, the Bible says, my people perish. And my desire for us today, especially, is that we will have godly wisdom and the principles, hopefully, by God's grace, to know how to invest in our finances, in our monies, how to make our money increase in whatever amounts that we are earning, whatever is our salary. I believe that there's always something that is affordable to put our money to work. So I'm trusting that in today's session, we will learn and have some wisdom, some practical wisdom on how we can do with what we have financially, or where we can start looking. And so we can understand that we are not just to sit with our money or sit or hide our money away when tough times are happening, but what can we actually do to prepare for the future? I remember, if you read your Bible, if you're not if you're not a Bible believer, you're not a Christian, one of the stories that are in the Bible is the story of the famine that happened in Egypt at some point. And was Pharaoh a king? Can't remember now. But the ruler of Egypt had a dream, and that dream was given an interpretation by Joseph. And the interpretation was, when there is famine in your land, this is the preparation that you ought to do, so that when there is famine, this is what will happen in the 7 years of famine, and this is what will happen in the 7 years of plentifulness. So there's always something to do in the good and the bad seasons. And right now, one of the things that we are hearing a lot is financial crisis, recession. We are hearing what's the other word now? Businesses shutting down, not being able to recover. We're hearing a lot of unemployment rates. We are hearing a lot of, the government is in so much debt, billions. And we are just hearing, but we are not understanding what it means for us as individuals. So it is my desire that hopefully by the end of today, with your questions and some of the questions that I will ask today, we'll be able to have some sort of understanding of what we can actually do as individuals, or if you're a company, as a company, during this time. So without wasting much time, God's Girls, Women on a Mission, help me welcome my twin as well, because it is her birthday today as well. I always joke and say that our mother gave birth, and then some twins have 2 minutes apart. We have like years apart. So so you know how some twins are like, yeah, we are 2 minutes apart. We're like, yeah, we're just quite a few years apart. So happy birthday to you, Minister Ade. Really thank God that you can join us today. You're still on mute. Thank God that you can join us today and give us some of your time on this special day of yours. I know if not for the lockdown, you'll probably be in Dubai somewhere and, you know, out of touch, out of reach. But I really thank God that you are able to join us for this broadcast. And so, welcome to God's Girls Women on a Mission for the first time. I hope you can hear me. I can't hear you. Did I mute you? You have to unmute your mic. I'm trying. It's saying your mic is not connected. If you can hear me, I'm trying to unmute you here, but it's saying. Oh, I can hear you now.
I think I'm unmuted.
I can hear you now.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Wonderful. Wonderful. Yeah. I think I was on mute. Thank you so much for having me on the show. It is indeed a privilege to be here, especially on the birthday of the host.
And your birthday.
Absolutely.
It's celebration all around today.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And the celebration shall continue throughout the year by God's grace.
Amen. Amen. Thank you so much for being with us today. Like I said, I know you would prefer to be in Dubai or somewhere like that.
Hello.
I
Oh,
think we keep losing the connection. Can you hear me? We keep losing our connection. Bear with us, guys.
I can hear you. I can hear you.
You can hear me? Okay, fine. I can hear you as well. I think there's a delay somewhere. Um, okay. So today we're talking
I can
about
hear you. I can
financial
hear you loud and
investment.
clear. Yeah. There is a
Okay.
delay, but I can hear you. Yeah.
Okay, that's great. That's great. So Minister Ade, I'm calling her Minister Ade because she is a minister in a church, but she is a financial professional by profession. So that's what she is here to share with us today. Many years of experience in the financial world,
Yeah, but
and
I
teaching.
okay.
Go on.
Go ahead. Go ahead. Please go ahead. Go ahead.
Okay, I'm going to let you do carry on, do the teaching, start the teaching for the next few minutes. So I'll come off so that hopefully the delay will be raised somehow, so we won't have any interruption. But today I just want us to start us off with just telling us what's happening in the financial world. What is it that we need to understand, especially as
Sure.
individuals? Or should we just ignore everything that we are hearing about the financial crisis? Is it not going to affect us as individuals, or there will be some effects somehow, somehow? So go ahead and speak to us. God bless you.
So Nomsa, and like I said, thank you. And I think period to talk about the topic we have chosen today. I know you introduced the topic as financial investments. We would touch on that, but in the scope of everything, I'm hoping we will touch on today. I would also want to sort of like encourage a discussion around managing finances in a crisis. Like the question you asked, do we do nothing? The answer is absolutely not. In terms of what is happening, we will touch on that. In terms of what crisis are we in right now, and where do we go from there? I hope our connection improves as we go along, um, because I really would like this to be a dialogue. rather than a lecture, to be honest, so that we can talk back and forth. We can ask questions back and forth. It tends to be much more interesting that way, rather than me doing a dump of information just the one way. So I do encourage all our viewers to chip in with questions, to chip in with comments, even on things you don't agree with, even if you have different perspectives. Nobody is the holder of all truth except God. So we can all learn from each other and we can all grow together. Like I said, it is a privilege for me to be here. So without much ado, I would dive into what our topic is, which is managing finances in a crisis. And as part of this, I would want to touch on what really is a crisis. What are the truths about crisis? And then what are the things we do in a crisis? Largely from a financial perspective, but it'll spread out a bit more. What are the things we shouldn't do in a crisis? What are the don'ts in a crisis? What are the opportunities a crisis might bring about? And I'll also touch briefly on identifying our work, which I know sounds a bit on a tangent, but it is a bit all wrapped in, and it'll make a bit more sense as we go along. So it goes without saying that we are in the eye of a crisis as a result of this pandemic. In the UK, as at October 2020, the UK GDP was down 9% than what it was before the lockdown. UK unemployment is expected to hit 7.5% by mid 2021 as furlough schemes come to an end, as business begin to struggle even a bit more. This represents about 2.6 million people being out of work, and this would be the highest since the last credit crunch of 2007 and 8. It's not what we hoped for, it's not what we prayed for, but we are where we are. So let's have a look at the nature of crisis. One of the best definitions I've heard about crisis is that crisis is a change in environment and circumstance that requires new and unscheduled responses. And this is by Dr. Miles Monroe. It implies that crises are not necessarily a negative thing. In fact, a crisis is negative depending on what our perception is, depending on what meaning we choose to give it. If we remember from the Bible, Isaac sowed in a crisis and reaped hundredfold. So a crisis could be negative, a crisis could be positive, simply from where you are stood, simply from what your perspective is. A could lose his or her job, B could lose his or her job, and for one, it's a crisis, and for another, it is an opportunity. So it's strictly from our perspective, it is strictly from our standpoint, it's strictly from our belief system that we will decide if a crisis is positive or it is negative. But the key thing about a crisis is that it requires a new and unplanned, previously unplanned response. Another way to look at crises could be defined as a bit of an adversity or some adversity. But then again, William Shakespeare said, sweet are the uses of adversity, implying that whatever adversities we come across, whatever crises we come across, there's some uses in there. There's some things we can take advantage of. There's some opportunities we can take going forward. So this implies yet again that crises are not necessarily negative things. In fact, we could make the best of it. So let's look at the truth about this crisis and all crises. And I've listed this numerically. First and foremost, a crisis is a season. And the nature of seasons are they will pass. They're only here for a while and they will go away. So there's no need to overly panic. There's no need to fret. It started at some point and it'll end at some point. But because they are seasons, they will come around again. This is not the first economic crisis this country is going to witness. Most of us listening to the show would have witnessed the 2007 or would have heard of the 2007 crisis that hit the world. So this is just yet another one. It'll pass. Everybody's life would involve a series of crises. The idea is to understand their nature, to not think of them as being catastrophic, to not think of it as being the end of things. Do not think of it as being, well, this is the work of the enemy. No, it is natural. We grow from them, we learn from them, we move on. It doesn't sound very Christian, but then again, Christ talked about the parable of the house built on the rock and the one built on the sand. And if we recall that parable, the storm came to both. The storm came to everybody, to those who built their house on the rock, i.e., believers, and to those who built their house on the sand, i.e., people who don't believe. It's the results that made the difference. It was the results that each one had that was different, not so much so if a crisis did come or not. So, crisis comes to everybody. But, like I said, understand it's a season, and this too will pass. One of the characteristics of crisis is that it resets our finances. Crisis eliminates waste. It forces us to spend only on essentials. And a good example, the lockdown. Monies we would have spent on restaurants, we would have spent on going to lunch, we would have spent on going to parties, we would have spent on stopping by in the drive-through for Starbucks or McDonald's or whatever. We've been forced to save. Even money we've been forced to, money we used to commute, money we used to do so many other things, commute to and fro from work, commute to go and see friends, to go to on social gatherings. We've been forced not to spend that money. Now it's down to us to save it. It's down to us, or we could go online and shop with it. But it's brought us down back to the basics. It has forced us to eliminate waste. Where people are not sure of their financial future, we begin to think carefully. Is it important that I spend this amount? Is it important that I spend this on this anymore? It makes us reset what our finances are. It makes us go back to the basics. It makes us understand what our needs as opposed to our desires. It makes us manage better. Another feature about crises from a financial standpoint is that it refines and sharpens our focus. Motivation is often at its highest when we have no option but to go forward. When what we used to have is endangered or exists no more. Say we don't have a job anymore, for instance, or the business is not thriving as it used to be, for instance, or the sources of income we used to have are under threat. It focuses our mind. It forces us to think innovatively. It forces us to dig deep further into our potential, to see what we can do better, to see how we can manage the resources we have better, to see how we could do more with the same thing. Another feature is that it forces us to be creative and innovative. It forces us to grow. It forces us to think wider. It forces us to think deeper. It forces us to think about more options. It forces us to think about more sources of income. It forces us to think, how could we do better? Crisis also invalidates previous assumptions and rules. Things we thought worked previously don't work anymore. I mean, for a very long time, people, or like the corporate world, for instance, didn't think it was possible for people to work from home for a year. Well, that has changed. It wasn't possible. It was thought it wasn't possible for most of the population, a sizable proportion of the population, to remain at home without commuting, without going into the office, without going to various places, and the economy still stands. That assumption has changed because the pandemic has proven otherwise. There's going to be permanent change going forward after the lockdown, after the pandemic, because yet again, as we said, it is but a season. There's going to be a permanent change in how we congregate, in how we shop, in how we walk, in how we learn, in how we grow, in how we even in how we gather. We have Zoom parties now rather than physical parties. Crises expose our weaknesses and fault lines. Crises are like people swimming on the beach, people swimming on the shore, and the tide is in, and everybody is maybe waist deep or neck deep in water, and everything is fine. And then all of a sudden, the tide goes back out, and then we know who's dressed and who's not dressed. The crisis is like the same. If we have not been saving, this is the time things are going to be exposed. If we have not been managing our finances previously very well, this is the time we're going to be vulnerable. If we have not been dealing with the resources in the best way and in the most efficient and effective way, this is a time where we may begin to get the feedback on that, where we begin to reap the impact of that. But then again, crisis creates opportunities. Contrary to general belief, opportunities actually multiply in a crisis rather than reduce. Examples that come to mind straight away in this particular crisis is the explosion of Zoom, of delivery services, of online entertainment, or of training, or even means of congregating. So opportunities are there. It's a case of seeing them and utilizing them. Crises reveal our true convictions. Do we truly believe? I mean, the crisis would basically challenge and let us bring to the fore if we truly believe that He supplies all our needs according to His riches in glory, or would we go into full panic? Do we see this season as a season of opportunity, or are we worried we're going to be victims of circumstance? All that comes down to our convictions. All that comes down to our belief. And then finally, crisis creates spiritual revival. In a season of crisis, it cuts across the board. We pray more. We remember God more. We seek His face more. Most churches, prior to the lockdown, prior to the crisis, prior to the pandemic, maybe had services on Sunday, maybe a couple of midweek services, and that's fine. Most churches were meeting every day at the height of the pandemic in March, April, May, June. Most churches, and it was online. Most churches were meeting, and this isn't even related to just churches alone or limited to churches alone. I have colleagues, I have friends who are not Christians, who are Muslims, who prayed more. I knew people who fasted the full Ramadan for the first time in this lockdown because this was a crisis. This was unusual. The danger of prosperity and stability is that it has the tendency to make us forget the source of them all, our Creator. So a crisis brings us back to Him. So those are the uses of a crisis. I don't want to keep rattling on. So I would like to ask our hosts if there's any questions at this point, or if I should continue to go ahead.
Hope you could hear me. I didn't bring myself back in. Thank you so much. I'll ask a few questions and then let you continue. And guys, if you're watching, if
Questions
there's any
I would
question,
push ahead in the interest of time. So the next in a crisis, as in what are the things we should do from a financial perspective and from generally managing our lives, from the perspective of generally managing our lives. The first thing, I've just heard our host.
we are behind each other with this. Um, it's sounding like you're in the.
Pastor Nomsa, are there any questions?
Let me remove you and bring. Can you come off the broadcast and then come back on? Let's see if that helps. Okay, thank you guys so much for bearing with us this afternoon. We're having a technical issue. Well, not technical issue. Well, I think it is technical issue. Our timing is slightly behind each other. It's almost like she's in a different country, but I assure you, she's in the UK. So we'll see what we can do with that. I think, Minister Ade, I'll ask you if you can come off the stream and then click the link back. Let's see if that will make it better. In the meantime, if you're watching us, share any comments that you would like to share and any thoughts or any questions that you would have that you would want us to explore this afternoon? Okay, we're going to go into a session of question and answer. Any questions that you have that you would like to ask our guest today, post them in now, send them to us, type them in. Let me know what you want to know. Let me know what you want us to consider and ponder on this afternoon. We've been talking about managing finances in a crisis. Managing, how are we going to manage what we have earned all this while? Are we just going to squander it all? Are we just going to hide it away? There's a story of I think 3 servants the way that were given different amounts of money, and one hid it away so that nothing could happen to it. So I can imagine some people right now, you're just hiding your money away. You're like, I don't want anything to happen to this money. I don't want to, invest in anything. I don't want to think about anything in case I lose it. But there's also a potential that you might lose it by just you hiding it away, because just money that you're not utilizing is money you're losing. So if your money is not growing, I don't know what you wanted to do. So ask away any questions that you have. Share with us your comments as we wait for our guests to come back on. One of the things that we learn is history repeats itself. History repeats itself. And as you said, we've been in a financial crisis before, and now we're in another one. There have been people that have boomed, as the word says, in their finances. What do they do? What do they do? That's one of the questions that I want to ask today. What makes some people become rich in a crisis and others become poorer? Good afternoon and welcome back. Let's see if this will be.
Good afternoon. I'm logging using a different device now. I hope is it any better?
It sounds better.
Actually, I don't need that now.
Okay, yeah, it sounds better.
Okay.
But I can hear myself from your device.
Okay. I am.
Okay, guys, bear with us this afternoon. Bear with us. As I said, it's my birthday, so you have to be kind to me today. Don't log off because of this technical issue. Be kind to the birthday girls. Okay, guys, that wasn't part of the script. That was not planned. That's what happens when you're not in control of your own broadcast.
I'm sorry about that. I have to apologize. I'm not sure what happened.
No, it's fine. And as you saw, I'm not the one in charge of the technical issues. So we were talking about managing finances in a crisis. Oh, I can still hear myself. The device is a bit loud. If you can reduce the volume a little bit. Hopefully you'll be able to hear me still.
Is this any better?
Yeah.
Okay.
So we were talking about managing finances in a crisis, and one of the things that we know is employment rates, as you mentioned, they've been going down. How can one manage what they have when nothing more is coming in?
Yeah, that is an exceptionally brilliant question. The reason I say so is it leads very nicely to the next part of what I wanted to sort of like discuss. And it basically is the things to do when we're in a crisis, even when income is not flowing in the way it should. One of the first things we should do, I mean, in this crisis, is hold on to cash. Like I mentioned earlier, there's some expenses right now that we're not incurring anymore. Not everybody's commuting to work. I know there's essential workers who still have to go to work, but a number of people either don't have jobs anymore or right now are working from home. So the costs of commuting is cut out. Also, the auxiliary costs that come with commuting, things we spend in restaurants, things we spend as part of the journey to work or from work, the expenses we spend going to see friends and family, all of those have been cut out. Most people will have noticed their petrol bill has gone down, or there's no train costs anymore. Now, those expenses, the money we should have spent on those areas, ideally, we should be saving. Now, statistics have shown that online shopping has exploded. We shouldn't be diverting that money into buying things online. That money should be saved. Right now is the time to hold on to cash. If you've not been saving, now is the time to start. Thankfully, statistics shows that the level of savings in the UK has really exploded as compared to previous years, basically for this reason. The worry, though, is they believe that after the lockdown, there's going to be an explosion in spending. But the ideal thing is not to do that. It's to hang on to cash. This is not the time for any big ticket items. You have the cash or you don't have the cash. Big ticket items like cars or fancy devices, new laptops, new Apples. This is not the time. This is because, like you mentioned, Pastor Nomsa, cash flows are potentially going to be constrained with the number of job losses that are probably going to come through in the course of the year. So the first thing is to hold on to cash. The second thing is to cut expenses down to the barest minimum. Now, we all have needs and we all have desires, and we all like our desires. But there's some things we need to question ourselves. Do we really, really need? Do you need that second phone? Do you need that third skybox? Do you need even Sky at all? Let's be brutally honest with ourselves. Sky can cost you up to £50 a month. There's Netflix for £9 a month. You really, really have to question every single expense. Do you need that fancy new dress? Nobody's going anywhere. Do you need, you need to question everything. You need the third phone. Do you need the second car? Do you even need some of the jewelry you've bought that none of us can wear anywhere right now? All of that is worth questioning. We need to move away from the things we like down to the very, very basic things we need. We need food. We need shelter. We need warmth. Those are the basic things we should focus on. And all the other frills, we can do away with for the time being. And potentially only return to these on a sporadic one-off basis. Another thing to do is that this is the season to be creative and innovative. There's some things that are never going to return to what they were before the lockdown. Like I mentioned, the way we commute, the way we congregate, the way we learn, the way we do so many things, the way we gather. So now is the time to think about what opportunities the season is presenting. What are those opportunities? And they're there. They're in front of all of us right now. It's a case of seeing them. It's a case of thinking deep. It's a case of also praying about it. It's a case of being innovative, being creative, giving deep thoughts to what are the opportunities here. People have seized an opportunity. One that always jumps to mind is Zoom, and that virtually hardly anybody heard of before the lockdown. And look at where they are now. Delivery opportunities are there. I heard recently KFC is now doing home delivery. Nando's is now doing home delivery. Those are examples of innovation. How can your business innovate? How can your business grow? It's time to be creative. What are those problems, even in this lockdown, that is calling for a solution? That is the thing. Those are the things we need to focus on. Not panicking about, oh, my old business is going down, my business is not doing well, or oh, they may fire me. No. What are those opportunities to seize? Is it time to start that new business that you've been dreaming of for years? Is it time to digitize or modify existing business? Is it time to enter into new markets? Is it time to upgrade your skills? Is it time to change your skills? Is it time to write that book that you've always thought about but haven't done yet? I'm speaking to myself as well. And that answer would differ for all of us, to be honest. But what is the same for each and every one of us is that it is time to break new ground. We cannot leave things the way they are. Like you mentioned, Pastor Nomsa, in your opening question, that is it a time to do nothing? Absolutely not. This is time to break new ground. The point is, regardless of the lockdowns, regardless of the furlongs, regardless of businesses crashing, regardless of everything, no money has left planet Earth. All the money that was always here is still here. The way it is distributed, the way it is channeled, where it goes may have changed a bit. Now, how we choose to deploy ourselves in solving problems, in making a difference, in serving our gifts, in serving our talents, we decide if some of that flow comes in our direction. But it is for us to take advantage of the season and to take advantage of the opportunities it's presenting. This season is also a time to continue to sow. Human nature is, when a crisis is raging, to focus on the crisis, to deal with the day-to-day effects of that crisis. But like I mentioned earlier, it's but a season, and this is going to pass. So we need to think beyond the season. This is not the time to stop your tithing. As long as you have an income. If you don't have an income, that's a different kettle of fish. As long as you have your income, don't think, oh, well, I don't know, I might lose my job, or I'm not sure about anything. No. Faith is about believing what we know in the night through to daybreak. So we don't stop our tithing, we don't stop our giving, we don't stop saving, we don't stop investing. And everyone should have an amount of investment. But we'll come to that. We'll come to that later on. The UK right now, for example, shares in the UK right now are the cheapest they have been in a very, very long time. Now is a very good time to get in. Shares that cost £6-7, maybe 4 or 5 years ago, you could get for £2, £3, £1. Here's the time. Now is the time to get in. And not only shares, there's some funds, tracker funds that you can invest in that have done very, very well, even during the pandemic, even during the lockdown. There's one that jumps to mind. It's offered by Hargreaves Lansdowne. It's the Legal and General US Index share. It's grown by almost 20%, even in the lockdown. So if you had invested £1,000 or £1,000, you'd be looking at 20% of that. Even in the lockdown. So now is the time to invest. We need to move away from this concept of just living on a sole income and paying our bills from a sole income. We have to make investing a way of life to create additional income, not just for ourselves, but for our children. Our children can't keep going to start from scratch. Everything we went through as people of color, as immigrants coming into this country, really shouldn't be what our children should go through. We really should lay a solid financial foundation for them. And the way to do this is to have decent investments in place. so they don't have to go crawling to the bank to get a mortgage before they can get a mortgage, or before they can get their foot on the finance or the housing ladder, or to get into business in any way, shape, or form. And one thing we have to consider is property. And that goes beyond just the house we live in. It's important to own the house you live in, to get a mortgage if you don't have the cash, but also invest in other areas. And you don't need a huge amount of money to do this. I know the idea sounds daunting, but you could band together with friends and start with very cheap property. There are properties up north, as I speak, that you can buy for 30,000, 35,000 pounds. So the deposit is 5,000, 6,000 pounds. Even if you don't have that yourself, get together with friends, band together with friends, form a company, purchase something, and begin to build from there. The reality of life, the reality in God's kingdom is until you own land, until you own real estate, you are poor. The first thing God gave Adam was real estate. The first thing God promised Abraham was real estate. The first thing God promised Moses was real estate. The first thing God promised Joshua was real estate. And Christ said, "Blessed are the meek, for they shall inherit real estate." If you look through the Bible, you will notice that when God wanted to bless, he gave territory. When he wanted to punish, he removed territory. So as believers, we should acquire territory. Another thing we need to do in this season is to exercise faith. Crisis, like I said, tends to reveal who we truly, truly are. Now, faith is not a religious word. It simply means belief. It simply means what I believe or what you believe. So we need to hold on to our positive beliefs right now, because belief could be positive, that I am going to make the best of this season. I am going to grab onto all the opportunities, and this season will be but a stepping stone into me deploying myself and becoming my greater self. Or I could have that belief that, oh my God, they're going to fire me. I won't be able to pay the mortgage. They'll take the house off me. They'll take the car off me. They'll take the cats off me. They'll take the dog off me. I'm going to end up in a homeless shelter. Both is faith. The point is, it takes as much effort to believe we're going to succeed as it takes that we're going to believe that we're going to fail. The choice is ours to decide what we're going to believe. Do you know why Christ didn't panic when the storm came, when he was in the boat with his disciples? Not that he was just God. Of course he's God, but he was man also. There was a human element to him. There was a time he was angry and he threw people out of the temple. There was a time he was tired and he was sat by the well. So he was human too. So have you ever wondered why he didn't panic when all the disciples panicked and they thought the boat was going to be overturned? It was simply a matter of faith. It was simply a matter of belief. He knew he came to the world to die. But he knew he came to the world to die on the cross. And that was going to happen in Jerusalem, not drowning in a lake in the middle of a storm. So there was no need to panic. There was no need to panic. So what we truly believe will come to the fore, but we have to believe for the best. It's James Allen, the author and philosopher, who said, "You realize the vision of your heart being base uphill. In your hands will be placed the exact results of your own thoughts." So we need to be careful about what we think. We need to be careful where we channel our faith. We need to be careful. Look, if we're panicking, a short anecdote to this is look for a Bible verse that says the opposite of what you're thinking, and continue to repeat this to yourself 3, 4, 5, 10 times a day until it sinks into your subconscious. And we need to understand that this is for our good, not for evil. We're going through this for us to grow, for us to stretch, for us to deploy ourselves, for us to make the best of the opportunities that are out there. Another thing to do in a crisis is create a second, a third, or a fourth income stream. I think culturally we've grown up with the habit of having a salary, sticking with that salary, paying our bills, and that becomes the essence of our lives. There's so much more we can do. After all, we can do all things through Christ who strengthens us. We can do all things we have been designed to do because Christ strengthens us. So now is the time to create a second, a third, and you don't have to give up your job to do this. In fact, you don't have to give up a lot of time to do this. I mentioned earlier investing in stocks. I mentioned earlier investing in funds. Those create income streams. Like I mentioned, is it now the time to write that book that would create income streams? Or have you thought of a podcast or a show like this to deploy your gifts? It was the richest man on earth, King Solomon, who said, sow your seed in the morning, and in the evening, let not your hand be idle. This means work very hard at your 9 to 5. Work very hard at your day job or your main job. But when that is done, continue to work diligently on your business and on your vision. The irony of life is, it's our dreams that keep us awake at night. It's those things we dream of that we need to continue to work on through the night. So it's worth looking at the opportunities that this season gives us. If you lost your job or you're about to lose your job, I remember speaking to a lady who had lost her job after 19 years with the same employer. I said, maybe now is just a new season. Maybe it's just time to set up that business you've always been thinking of. To start to deploy your gifts that you've always thought of. The follow money, the lane of money that they've given you, probably that's your capital to start. So don't panic. It's just a new season. It's just a new season for the greater you. So those are the things we should do in a crisis. So what about the don'ts? But before I go ahead, actually, before I pack it on, I'd like to ask our hosts if she wants to chip in anything or any questions from the audience.
Keep forgetting I'm on mute. We've got two questions here. You mentioned earlier on about keeping cash. And for some people, when you say keep cash, and for me as well, it sounds like keep physical cash in your hands as opposed to keep it in a bank.
Oh, please keep it in the bank. I didn't mean that.
But we have no bank to go.
Please put it on your mattress.
Banks have gone bankrupt before, so we're thinking if it happens again and history repeats itself, what is that bank that you bank?
No, I think our cash is relatively safe, and the point of keeping cash is simply not just building up cash for the sake of it. It's to hang on to some things for contingency, and also to invest to make the best of the opportunities that this season is presenting.
So you've heard that leave your money in the bank.
Leave it in the bank.
Though you might not make interest on it.
I heard of a story. I don't know the couple themselves, but there was this couple that the parents of one of them was living with them, and so grandma was living with them, and they decided to surprise her with a new bed. So she went away for the weekend to go and see one of her friends. It happened in this country, and when she came back, they had bought her a brand new bed, a really lovely, comfortable bed in her bedroom. And grandma freaked out because she had kept £35,000 in the mattress they had gone to throw away. So they dashed to the skip to see if they could find the mattress was gone with £35,000. So please, I beg of you, don't keep money. Don't keep money at home.
I can't lie. That sounds like me. I can be old school sometimes.
I'll come to that question because you sent me some questions online about banks potentially going bankrupt. There's very little risk of of our funds right now, right here, being at risk. Banks are not right now at the risk of going bankrupt. In the last crisis, the 2007-8 crisis, there was a liquidity crunch. There was the potential of banks running out of cash, and there was the potential of what we call a run on the banks. This is where everybody's lining up to collect the money they have deposited in the bank. Now, the banks don't hold on to cash. It's not as if they have some safes everywhere that the money everybody has deposited is in some safe somewhere. No, they've invested a lot of it. They've borrowed out a lot of it. They've used a lot of it for a number of things. So the cash is not physically there. So it's really a disastrous scenario when there's a run on the bank and everybody's demanding their money. So from the lessons of that last crisis, some very stringent rules have been put in place around how much capital the banks should retain, what type of capital the bank should retain, how liquid some of this capital should be. In addition to this, the government set up the FSCS, did I pronounce that? The federal, it's a compensatory scheme. And this is where everybody's deposits with banks in the UK is guaranteed up to £85,000 if it is a single account, and up to £170,000 if it is a joint account. So if you have £50,000 worth of savings or £5,000 worth of savings with Barclays Bank, and for whatever reason, whatever far-fetched reason we can't think of right now, Barclays Bank goes bust, this body will give you your £5,000, and it goes up to £85,000. If you have cash for more than £85,000, all you simply need to do is open another account with another bank, because this guarantee is per bank. So if I have £85,000 in one bank and I have £85,000 in another bank, I will collect my money from in both scenarios, because the limit is per bank. So our deposits are barely at risk, to be honest.
That's some wisdom. That is good. So if you are a millionaire watching out there, split your money. So someone is asking, how do we buy shares? Where should we start from, in stocks as well? So if you're brand new to hearing about investments, where should you start looking for information? And can you even recommend at least one good site that you know this is legit, that someone can look into?
There are quite a few sites out there. To be honest, most banks have shareholding sites. I think actually, in anticipation of that question, I wrote down a few. One I personally use is Hargreaves Lansdown. That's spelled Hargreaves, and then it's Lansdown. Their fees, they operate online. You don't need to go into any bank or anything. You can open an account online. As in, they're online stockbrokers. And you can begin to buy shares once you open a trading account. Their fees are quite low. There's Interactive Markets, there's Barclays Stockbrokers, there's Saxo Markets, there's IG. But that is just 5 out of thousands and thousands and thousands. It's good to buy shares, and it's good to start investing. Absolutely, that's the site. Absolutely. If you want to start buying shares, that is fine. It's good to have a decent stock. Like I said, UK shares are the lowest they have been for a very long time. Having said all of that, and I have to admit I hold shares as well, so it's not as I'm trying to talk you out of it. Having said that, it begs the key question that what shares do you buy? Which one do you take a bit of a risk on? And that almost is like asking, how long is a piece of string? It's a very difficult question to answer. Some people just have a conviction that I think this company is going to do well. Large organizations like pension funds and other funds that invest en masse, they have dedicated teams that do research and analysis to get to the bottom of things before they decide where to put the money and where to invest and how much to invest and for how long. And they still sometimes get it wrong. So it's not an exact science, to be honest. I personally have come to learn that one of the safer ways, I'm not going to say it's foolproof, but one of the safer ways to invest is to invest through funds, tracker funds. So I'll explain what tracker funds are. But before I go into tracker funds, I'll explain what share indexes are, because these funds track share indexes or indices. In the UK, one of the major indices we have is the FTSE 100. And basically what this does is it tracks the value of the top 100 companies, the value of the shares in the top 100 companies in the UK. So sometimes when you hear the financial news, you would hear things like the FTSE 100 went up by so and so points today, or it went down by so and so points today. It basically means the collective shares in those top 100 companies went up by so much, or the collective shares in those companies went down by so much. So what a lot of these tracker funds do is they track those share indices. So fund, stop me if I'm saying too much jargon here. So a tracker fund that would track the FTSE 100, for instance, if the FTSE 100 goes up by 1 point, that fund will go up by 1 point. If the FTSE 100 goes down by 1 point, that fund will go down by 1 point. To bring it down to its barest minimum, if you invest £100 in a tracker fund that follows the FTSE 100, it is tantamount to investing £1 in each of those 100 companies. So your risk is spread across the board, because all those 100 companies are not going to move in unison. Some are going to go up, some are going to go down across time. But your risk is spread, as opposed to putting everything in one company and then the whole thing tanks. Now, it could be another way, and it could soar like Apple or Microsoft or Google, but your risk is spread. Now, you do have some funds that invest in all of those. So all you need to do is just put in one amount, and your investment is spread across all those companies. So that is also worth considering. Hargreaves Lansdown also do a myriad of funds that you could invest in. So we could do another show going into the details of those. I don't think we would have the time to but I can, like I said, I'll give the highlight or the high level of it. But in terms of exactly how to invest and how to go about it, we probably need another show. But for sure, we have to start investing. We can't just rely on a salary. Nobody ever became wealthy from a salary.
That's true. I was gonna say as well, if she is on Facebook, I'm not sure about Instagram. Are you an Insta person? But you can contact her.
I have to create one. I was only thinking it this morning. Having said that, and I think Pastor Nonsa knows about this, I do teach a class on WhatsApp. So if you want to ping your number across to me, I can add you to the class. Because all what I'm saying is not news to Pastor Nonsa. So I teach this class 3 times a week, and we discuss all of these. We ask questions, we debate back and forth, we exchange ideas. And I will be moving it to Instagram this year.
Amen to that. She's moving with the generation. So you can get hold of her or send me your number. I'll link you up and you get on the group. That group is really helpful. That's how I started looking into stocks and investments and repairs as well. You mentioned earlier about housing, and that's one of your biggest, from what I know you from, since I've known you since in diapers up to now. Housing is one of your big things. You love it. And it's something that I know is proven, it works. Is you always need land, people always need somewhere to live, so investing in housing is great. But one of the things you mentioned is if you can't buy a house yourself, do it with a group of friends. Most people will be thinking, so who will own the house if I get it with my friends? Like, that will always be the first question. Can you just give us a highlight on that?
All of you would own the house. It wouldn't belong to anyone, because the idea is that this house would be a business asset. You set up a company, you set up a limited liability company, ideally, so that, and that mostly is going to help you for taxation purposes. Anybody can set up a company. You could go online and set up a company within an hour. Set up the company, buy the house under the company name. There's some implications for doing that, but there are also some implications for buying a house in your personal name too. Based on my experience, I would recommend buying it in a company, and you all own the house. You could decide to be all directors of the company, and you could share equity in the company based on how much everybody brings to the table. And an easy way for property to grow, and I'm so glad you brought up that question, Pastor Nomsa, is you buy the first house. Say you bought the first house, £100,000. You don't need to raise £100,000. Under if you're going to buy a buy-to-let house with a company, the banks tend to require a bit more deposit, so they may ask for 20 or 25% deposit, which might be 20 or 25,000 pounds. Now, there's no limit on how many of you can raise this amount. You come together, you raise it under the company, you put down your deposits. You get your mortgage for £100,000. You let out the house, depending on who you let the house out to, depending on how you let the house out, will create a cash flow for you. So there's that income coming in. I mean, ideally, I wouldn't suggest spending that money. Use it for capital, use it for repairs, use it for whatever needs doing. Sit on the house for 2-3 years, wait for it to appreciate in value. So the house you bought for 100,000, maybe a couple of years down the line, is now worth 50,000. You go back to the bank and say, now, this house is worth 50,000. Can I take out equity of 10 or 20,000? You take out another 20,000, add it to the money you've been saving. What do you do with it? Shopping in Dubai. No.
We are women.
You buy another house. You buy another house. So you basically take the growth of that single house and buy another house. What do you have now? You have 2 houses. Wait for the second house to grow, and what do? You buy yet another one. So you have 2 houses that you can use to create equity. The 2 houses become 4. The 4 houses become 8. And that's how you grow. So one thing I've learned is that a lot of people are intimidated to start, but it isn't that difficult. And like I said, I even gave a house that costs £100,000. The house is for somebody recently called me that was interested.
Sounds like
I've gone to, it might require a lot of work, but start with it. One thing I've learned is things that look really daunting and impossible, once you start and take that first step, solutions begin to come as you move along. But take that first step. Take that risk. Take that risk where you'll be thinking, hey, what am I doing here? If this goes bad, it will go badly wrong. But take that risk notwithstanding. Do we want to go through life living our best selves, daring to be who we should be and who we truly are? Or do we want to be so cautious that we come to the end of our lives and wonder, what if? What if I took that risk? What if I did this? What if I did that? Understand one thing, it could come crashing down. But know that you will learn a lesson, you pick yourself up, you dust yourself down, and you have a go at it again. The biggest regrets research has shown that people have in life is not the things they did. It's not even the mistakes they made. It's those things they did not do.
True.
The risks they did not take. The thrill of the hunt that was never experienced. The rights that were never, the wrongs that were never righted. The passions that were never expressed. Those are often the biggest regrets.
Wow.
For sure, we'll make mistakes along the line. We'll learn. And it doesn't mentors who would guide us through as well. So that we don't reinvent the wheel. We simply stand on the shoulders of those who have gone ahead of us.
Oh, can you say that again?
That it helps to get mentors.
It is so true, because one of the things that I saw growing up, I could see people with money, they're spending it, and then by the time that they lose the job or they retire, it's like, okay, where's the money? How did you make the money? So we just learned that they made the money by getting a good job. But once that job is gone, there's nothing else. So personally, I didn't grow up hearing financial investments or anything investment. That word was foreign to me. So when you started hearing people or even someone saying you can buy a house without your money, you're thinking, what does that mean? What is that? And you just leave it to say, okay, it's for the people that have gone to university and got the knowledge about that or for that. And you count yourself out. So I believe that even in this season, there are people that I would just use ordinary citizens, for a lack of a better word, that are just sitting there thinking, what am I going to do now? Where can I start? I don't have anyone in my family that is rich, that can give me money, that can, help me start the business, that can help me start with the investment. Where can I begin? How much do I need to even begin? Even to buy a share, it sounds like a millionaire's kind of mindset thing. So how do we start with the basic? What can someone just do? I mean, this is one of the reasons we've got this session today, just letting you hear a foreign language. Well, it might be a foreign language to you. And then after hearing, what can someone practically start doing from today to get on a journey of, not just financial freedom, but even just thinking about second income, third income?
Absolutely, Pastor Nams. And just to support what you just said, a salary is not a cash flow. I think we need to understand that, and I think it's time we changed our paradigm about that source of income. A salary is a series of one-off incomes. It's not a cash flow, and our culture has raised us to fundamentally depend on that. So we go to university, we choose our courses, or we choose our vocation based on how good a salary it may bring us. But salary, like I said, is not a cash flow. It may last for a long time, but it's not a cash flow. It's a series of one-off hits, and I'll explain why. Anybody who is in paid employment should think about not going to work for a month or two. I'm not telling anybody. And let's see how well that cash will flow. It'll dry up very quickly. Now, if you set up a business very properly, especially with passive income, you don't need to do anything. If you buy yourself a house, for instance, or you invest in a house, and you follow the legislation, you set it up correctly, and you get your tenants in there, you don't need to go to work every day. You don't need to grieve yourself every day. The cash continues to flow. That's a proper cash flow. As opposed to exchanging your life, your time, for an income. So it's a one-off. It's a one-off, although it happens a series of times, but it really is a one-off. And then going back to where do we start from? You mentioned earlier that in this season where things are not as we had hoped them to be, businesses are collapsing, people are being laid off, jobs are being lost. And it's not in our culture to talk about investments. It's not in our top culture to talk about financial education. We've been raised to work for a salary. That's the honest truth. Where do we start? And that's a brilliant, brilliant, brilliant question. When God called Moses, if we recall, Moses came up with all sorts of excuses because he really, really didn't want to go back to Egypt to go and rescue the people. I mean, he thought he was going to be killed. I mean, he ran away. He was a fugitive, let's be honest. So he came up with all sorts of excuses. And God told him, what is that in your hand? When Christ was speaking at a seminar, an outdoor seminar with 4,000 people, and the disciples realized that people were hungry and they needed feeding, Christ asked them, what do you have right now, right here? The same thing happened with the 5,000. What do you have right now, right here? Start with what you have. The truth. Let me be a bit radical. Whatever you require to become a millionaire, you have it now. Sometimes we don't quite see it. That's the problem. We don't quite see it. Whatever
reality.
Sorry?
That's a harsh reality.
It's a harsh reality. It might not necessarily be bundles of cash, because I think the first thing we think of is what's in my bank account. Well, it's not necessarily that.
Yeah.
It's the knowledge you have acquired. It is the... I have to give a shout out to Sister Bookie.
Where's my
shout out to my lovely sister in Wolverhampton. So it's the knowledge you have, it's the contacts you have, it's the people's knowledge you could leverage, it's partners you could gather to raise funds. You don't have to have the funds right now. And dare I say, very pertinent to this season, is that in a bid to prevent the economy completely collapsing, with people under lockdown, with businesses going under, the government has flooded the economy with cash, either through bounce back loans, or through commercial loans, through furlough schemes. If you qualify for any of these, then go and get it. Go and get it and use it wisely. Take advantage of the opportunities that are available. Don't say, oh, no, it's another debt, oh, I don't like debt. You can leverage that debt to build a business and then get out of it later. But I'm not suggesting go and get this fraudulently, only if you truly and genuinely qualify. So look at what you have. Look at what is available and start from there. You don't need this massive loan or handout, or start with what you have. You do have enough. Believe that. You do have enough. It's harnessing what you have and moving forward from there.
That sounds yeah. I didn't think you're gonna get spiritual, but yeah, that's just the truth. Sometimes we like to separate spirituality and finances and things like that, but if we can have that slide back when you mentioned about Moses owning real estate and Abraham, I think we've never heard it from that perspective. We're always thinking faith to move mountains in terms of pray against demons and all that.
The truth, Pastor Nomsa, is that they're not mutually exclusive. It is our faith that gives us the knowledge, the understanding, and the audacity to take actions we need to take. Because I think one mistake we make as Christians, more so as African Christians, is that we confuse faith with self-development. We conflict the difference. We don't quite understand. We use faith to replace self-development. We use faith to replace principles. We use faith to replace taking the necessary steps in the necessary season. We use faith to replace growing, learning, going through challenges. We simply think faith would erase all of that. We just have to believe, and then that will be it. So I might decide not to get out of bed for a week, but still have faith to become a millionaire. That's not going to happen. I don't know if I'm I don't know if I'm making sense. Faith without works is dead. Is dead. So we have to do what is necessary. We have to take the necessary steps. We have to get the necessary education. We have to keep exposing ourselves to growth, to learning, to stretching, to the risk of failing, of picking ourselves up. When we do fall, it's part of the process. It's not mutually exclusive from faith. And I think that's one thing that I think sometimes us Christians, and like I said, us African Christians, sort of like we kind of confuse.
Wow. One of the I think one of the websites that I had to start using, which was free. I didn't have the funds to start, apply to start now doing all these £300 courses or 5,000 whatever. And then someone mentioned Udemy to me, and they mentioned how they've got some from free to paid courses. So I just started with the free ones on the topics that I needed to develop myself in. And I was like, wow. So all this has been here all this time, and I've just been.
I know someone who heads up the IT function for one of the major banks here in the UK. She heads up the IT function globally. And she's a fairly good friend of mine. And she basically said she learned most of what she learned from YouTube, to be honest. That information is there. We just don't tap into it. It's there for us, for the taking. The University of YouTube, we could use it to learn as much or to waste as much of our time as we want. The choice is ours. The choice is ours, really.
If there's anything you can take away today, people, is the University of YouTube. It's free. You don't need to be an international student or anything. They'll accept you as you are. Oh my God, that is just raw truth. For someone that has got, like, with everything that's happening with employment right now, if you had a child that's going to university or at this point, would you encourage it? If you would, what course would you encourage them to do? If you wouldn't encourage it, what would you be hoping or advising them to do?
I would answer that question twofold. First of all, especially in the UK, I'm not sure if university for certain courses is a wise idea anymore. The reason being, there are now these apprenticeship schemes where students are actually being paid. They work as apprentices. They go to uni part-time, but they don't bear any cost of going to uni while they work. It takes a bit longer. So say if we take, for example, an accountancy course, which may take, I think, maybe 3 or 4 years, they would spend about 6 years. But they're already working with an accountancy firm from the get-go. So they go to university part-time, they work most of the time. The cost of university is paid for, and they actually earn a salary. So by the time they are fully qualified, they have the experience that most of their peers who went to university do not have. They're already earning an income, and they already have a job. So these apprenticeship schemes are all out there. The government is actually paying employers to take on apprentices. So that is just one option. I'm not an expert on this, but I know someone who is. So, and if you wish to invite her to the show, that is all in. But I don't want to throw her in it. I mean, you could ask her if you want to. So that's one thing worth considering. Another thing in terms of cost, I think we need to move our minds away from this idea of what course will give me the best salary. One of the things we haven't come to that I was going to talk about, and I knew in the interest of time, maybe I hadn't touched on it, is this is a season to discover our work. This is the season to discover what we really are on this planet Earth to do. We're not here to get a job, pay bills, pay a mortgage, finish paying the mortgage, continue to pay bills, and then die. We're here to make a difference. We're here to have an impact. And this season is one where we begin to discover our work. And our work is not our job. So for a young person going to university, the idea is, what is their passion? Everybody on this planet has a gift, has at least one gift, has at least something to offer the world, has at least something they will change about this world, or they ought to change about this world before they leave. I'll just touch briefly on the difference between our work and what a job is. But before then, absolutely, thank you for that slide. To work is to become, is to deploy your authentic self, to display the true you, is to realize our full potential. It is to produce our food from that unique gift we have. Even where people have similar gifts, you will serve yours in such a way that is unique to you, because each and every one of us are wonderfully and fearfully made. Each and every one of us are unique. So, the difference between a job and our work. A job is something we're paid to do. Our work is something we're born to do. A job is where we use our skills. A job is where we deploy our natural gifts. I could talk like this for hours, but the point is, Pastor Nomsa, my device is going to run out of battery soon. I need to shift positions to put it into the socket. A job is where you conform to type. You follow policies, you follow rules, you follow standards. This is the way we expect you to be. So once you come on board, you're told this is how to do things, this is the way you should do things, blah, 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 blah. Your work is where you express who you are, the genuine you, the authentic you. The only rules you need to comply with are God's principles, are God's standards. Otherwise, you soar. A job is where you maintain the status quo. You keep what is. You keep things ticking over. In your work, you're there to change the status quo. There's something on earth, each and every one of us is here to either change or upgrade or amend or move forward. In a job, you deliver to expectation. These are the standards we expect of you. In your work, you deliver your passion. In a job, you work with regards a position. In your work, it's about your disposition, about your thinking, about your perspectives, about your understanding, about what you know your abilities to be. In a job, you look for a job. When you do your work and you deliver your gifts, you are looked for. Your job has a defined time span. Nobody held a job forever. You're going to get to an age, they're going to tell you, please retire. And they'll give you a gold watch and a bunch of flowers and you will leave. Your work is for life, forever and ever. In a job, you work for a salary. In your work, you create wealth. So that's the difference. So anyone going to university or any young child going to university now, you want to encourage them to do something that will help them refine their gifts, not look for a job that will give them a salary. Pastor Nomsa, I'm going to shift position a bit because, like I said, I'm running out of juice. So I would move over here so I can plug in.
We need to, guys, we need to go to Ade University because I could sit here all day and just because your mind, our minds need to shift to wealth. We need to be thinking wealth. Wealth. You can't leave your job to your children, or when you pass, you can't be like, "Oh, my child, take over this job." No, but wealth, you can leave that to the generation and the generation after you, and especially as children, as women of God, that should be our mindset. What am I going to pass on to my children? That is what we should be thriving to do. And you can use your job to help you get into that, but you should never let your job be like your stopping point in life. I hope you're enjoying this discussion. Before we finish, if you have any questions that we've not touched on yet, please send them in before we finish. But I have a feeling that we might need to have Minister Ade back for another discussion on this, so that we can, she can we can draw out every virtue that's out of her on this topic. But yeah, what would you, if you were to sit with somebody, with your younger self, I know you're still young, but your younger self, and talk about life and what to focus on, especially in regards to money and finances, what would be some of the things that you would have avoided or that you would have done earlier?
Absolutely. Start investing from day dot. Start investing from day dot. Don't think you have time. I see a lot of younger people straight out of university. You get a really good job. So what do? We buy fancy cars. We live in fancy flats in the city center that we don't own, that we're renting. Now understand one thing. As long as you're renting, you're paying off someone else's mortgage. You're paying off the loan on an asset that will never become yours. So why don't you put yourself in a position where that asset at some point will become yours? Am I making sense? Get on the housing ladder ASAP. ASAP. Don't be too concerned about all these frills and fancy things. There will come a time and a place where you would easily be able to afford them. Easily. But starting out in life is not that point in time. I don't know if I'm making sense. Treat yourself to an old banger. I mean, Pastor Nomsa will remember that my old 30 red car.
I was trying not to mention it, but guys, let me tell you one thing. This woman right here, oh my God. This woman has been, I don't want to use the word filthy, but they say filthy rich for you to understand sometimes that, yeah, this person has got money. But this was years back, but she had, for some of us would have said she made it, and she was earning good money, good job, and she had a nice car sitting in the garage. But every time you just see her with this korok red car. What was I can't even tell you the name of the car. I don't even think the car had a name. The car she was driving when she was born. She was still driving in 2002. And people will be like, oh, look at this woman. Why is she driving this car? We didn't understand it. But now I understand. But back then I was like, how can you go about, even sometimes come to church, driving this korokoro car, and you've got what was I'm not into cars, but the car was one of those cars that, yeah, I even want right now. And yeah.
But to be honest, Pastor Nomsa, that other car, which happened to be a BMW X5, was not one of my wisest decisions. I wouldn't lie. If I was to have my time over again, I would not have bought it. I wouldn't buy it. Understand that a car is a depreciating asset. The minute you drive a car off the driving lot, you've lost 10-15% already. It's not giving you any money. It's eating up funds in terms of insurance. It's eating up funds in terms of road tax. It's eating up funds in terms of depreciation. It's eating up funds in terms of servicing and repairs. It's not the best use of our funds. I have since developed a philosophy that, look, if you have not got enough funds to buy a car cash down without it denting you in any shape or form, then you can't afford that car. Yeah, because it's a depreciating asset. Rather than do that, I know of someone or heard of someone who was paying £800 a month on a brand new car, and I was thinking, this is money you could put aside to buy a house. Give this car 5 years, and you're going to sell it for half, if not less, of what you bought it for. So these are the things we need to take our focus away from, to be honest. Sometimes, because of the culture we grew up in, and I did a series of leads on the finance masterclass that I teach, on 10 African traditions that lead to poverty. And one of them is this ostentatious lifestyle. So I really need to live big so that people can see that I'm rich, or have the perception that I'm rich. So even the things I can afford and I can't afford, I start doing them so that everybody can see and have a perception about me. And then people start trying to keep up with me. I start to keep keeping up with the Joneses. The problem is the Joneses are in debt. So might as well take whatever cash we have and invest wisely to create cash flows. We don't tend to invest a lot in things that are not very visible. So things like shares. You can't go to a party and brag about shares, can you? You can't go to a party and start declaring how much funds you have. Although, let me be honest, I know people who do. I know people who do. But on average, you can't do that. So it's not seen. It's not seen by all and sundry. And it also ties into the culture we have, where we seem to respect people based on the money they have. And everybody wants respect. Let's be honest with ourselves. So we try to portray what we are not, because we crave respect. So I'm running really low on juice here. So I really hope this doesn't shut down. But let's keep going. I'm charging, but it's draining faster than it's charging.
We'll try and finish in the next 10-15 minutes, guys. Thank you so much, guys, for being with us this afternoon. We should be done 10-15 minutes done. So stick with us, because this is something that's life-changing and much needed in this time and season.
So there's a wonderful question here in terms of how do we identify our work. I think that is a very brilliant question. And I've identified 5 or 6 ways we can identify our work that is as opposed to a job. And the first one is, what makes you angry? What are those injustices that you just can't make peace with? What are those things that you can't settle on? I remember years ago, and this must be going back about 6-7 years, I saw a clip on YouTube, or was it Facebook, about how a particular woman was treated. And it stayed with me for like 6 months. I just could not get that picture out of my head. It bothered me so much. What are those things that sometimes make you heartbroken? Tamara Buck, the American lady who started Me Too, could not make peace anymore with the normalization and the way we treated business as usual, the sexual assault of women, or taking advantage of women sexually. She couldn't make her peace with it anymore. And that's why she started Me Too. And everybody today talks about Me Too. But that passion identified her as her. Well, we all talk about her today now. But it was something that made her angry. It was something she couldn't make peace with. Another point is what comes to us naturally. What do we find fascinating and interesting? What is that thing we could do for hours and have fun? What are those things you could talk about for hours and you come alive? I remember receiving a phone call a while back and I was tired. It was the end of the day. It's been a long day. I wasn't feeling too well. And that person called to talk and just give me an update about something. And I was just listening. Oh, yeah. And then she started asking questions about finance. And I just noticed I came alive. I came alive. So what is it that just puts a pep in your step, that just brightens your eyes, that just taps into your passion? What comes to you naturally? That's an indication of where your work is. God is so good that He puts everybody's seed within them. He puts everybody's gifts within them. You don't need to go look out there, to be honest. What is it you enjoy? What would you do without being paid? What would you do that, you know what, I can continue this? Now, there's some people who are so lucky that their work also overlaps with their job. But they're not very many, but there are people like that. So you see them, they're one of the first into the office in the morning, they're one of the last to leave, they keep going on and on. Some people wonder, what's your own self? But it's because it's their work. It's because it's what they're passionate about. They're not trying to impress anybody. It's just what they deploy. What is it that you continue to do, and even food or sleep becomes a distraction? Legend has it that the well-known musician John Legend, I didn't intend the pun, used to be a Wall Street management consultant, and he'll work all day. And you know, these are people who work really long hours. He'll work all day, goodness knows how many hours. Come home, maybe at 12 midnight, write songs all night, take a shower and head back to the office most days, because that was his passion. That was his passion. And eventually gave up management consulting for music. And the rest, they say, is history. What do people tend to seek your advice on? And they keep coming back. So it's not a case of somebody saw your advice once and they thought, oh my God, she nearly killed me. Look at what she told me to do. No. But they keep coming back for more. What are those things that are so obvious to you, but not very obvious to others? I know someone close to me. She's actually an IT expert now. But she said her first foray was economics, when she went into university and she wanted to go into business, and it just didn't make sense to her. No matter how hard she tried, no matter how much she read, she just couldn't piece it all together. And now I did economics, and it was just natural to me. In fact, the theories was almost as if I didn't need to study for them. So everybody has that area that you just have that gift for. It just comes natural to you. That is an indication of your work. What is it you feel compelled to do? That you feel in your gut you just can't let go of? What's that fire in your belly that just will not be put out? And I don't know the makeup of the audience listening to this, but if you're a woman, please understand that don't let culture tell you that you're limited to being a wife and a mother. You're way, as wonderful as those things are, you're way, way more than that. You're way more than that. You're on this planet to leave your footprints in the sands of time. Don't let culture and tradition limit you. A very good example is Malala, who felt compelled to change the way the Taliban thought about education in Afghanistan. She had to do something about it, even though she was a young girl. Oh.
Have we lost you? Okay. Wow. I think if she doesn't come back on, we had gone past our time anyway. So thank you guys for staying tuned for today's session on financial investment and managing finances. I hope you've been blessed. Minister Ade, can you hear me? Are you there? No. Okay, I hope, yeah, that was a good ending, even though she didn't quite end, but we will have to bring her back so that we can have another session on managing our finances and financial investment. Because at the end of the day, we just started the year, and I think we can do with a bit of a reset, a rethink, and relax with our finances increase even in the midst of famine. We heard Isaac sowed and reaped in the same season of famine. So, right now, it's not the time to sleep, it's not the time to wonder, it's not the time to cry, but it is the time to focus on our work. What's in you this year that you can bring out? What have you been sitting on over these years that you can tap into now that you've got time to yourself? Well, you might have children and husbands at home and all that, but now that you don't have to be traveling up and down to work for some of you, or even if you're still doing that, now that you have seen how things can just change just like that, can you just take some time to tap into what's in you, what's built inside of you, what has been seeded on the inside of you, so that you can make your wealth or begin to make your wealth? We can leave a wealthy inheritance for our children. And that is my desire for you, that you will work towards leaving a wealthy inheritance for your children's children in Jesus' name. Thank you so much for joining us this afternoon once again for God's Girls Wives with Wisdom. Thank you so much for all the birthday wishes. Oh, there goes my husband again. Thank you, hubby, for invading our platform this afternoon. And I can't tell you what he did. Some of it, it's not for your ears. But yeah, I love you so much. Thank you for making the day special. Thank you for my God's Girls team for making today special as well. Thank you for always being there. Thank you for keep on running with the vision. Thank you to everyone that is attending the sessions. So I'm just, oh, she's back. I'm just going to give Minister Ade like 5 minutes to finish what she was saying, and we will end there. Just 5 minutes, summarize for us even one of the things that we should focus on as we start the year in such a climate as this, such a situation as we are.
I first of all want to apologize for all the viewers. My device ran out of batteries, but I'm back. I'm back. I think what we need to focus on in this season, I think the very, very important thing is it's only a season. This too will pass. This too at some point in time is over. And I think it's really important to note that even though everything appears catastrophic around us, it's not even as bad as the last crash. The unemployment figures that are being projected are not as bad as the last crash. The banks are not on the verge of collapsing. There's still a lot of cash actually going around in the system. One of a couple of challenges that the banks are facing is not liquidity, is not cash. It's number one, but a lot of the loans that have been given out as bounce back loans, as CBILS and all whatnot, that maybe people may not pay them back in full. We don't know yet. The second one has to do with low interest rates. Now, the way the banks make their money is from getting money in, borrowing money at one interest rate, and loaning it out at a high interest rate. Those margins are now squeezed. So the banks are actually keen to borrow money as opposed to they don't have money. So this crisis is not the last crisis. And more importantly, understand that all crises, every crisis, comes to bring us back into focus, comes to refocus our finances and present opportunities for us to grow, for us to leave the level we are, for us to launch ourselves into the next level, for us to deploy who we truly and genuinely are. The question I would want all of you listening and all of us listening to go away with is, we're all on this planet for a limited time. Exactly when are you going to start showing up? Exactly when are you going to be the real you? Exactly when is that authentic you that you know yourself to be within you? Exactly when are you going to start living like her or like him? Exactly when do you want your dreams to become reality? The truth is the only time we have is now. Yesterday is gone, it's gone for good. Tomorrow we may or we may not have. So the only time we have is now. And with that, I would want to say thank you so much for having me on this very, very special day. And I pray for greater, greater, greater things for this show. Thank you so much. It's been a privilege.
Okay, I lost myself there. Can you hear me?
I can hear you, yeah.
Okay. My apologies. I lost myself. I didn't hear the last thing you said.
Oh, the last bit I talked about, it's time for each and every one of us to show up. Now is the only time we have. All the yesterdays are gone. Tomorrow we may or we may not. So there's no point saying, you know what, I'll postpone this to tomorrow. I'll postpone. We may or may not have tomorrow. Today is the time we have to show up as our real self, as our authentic self. You know, that ourselves that we're not sure if the world would really accept, but it really doesn't matter. It really doesn't matter. We don't need permission to be who God already made us. We came pre-approved. So show up and live life to its fullest.
Wow. Show up and live life to the fullest. 2021, show up and live life to the fullest. And you know what you need for that? You need money. Yes, you need money to do that as well. So put your money to work this year. Wow, thank you so much, Minister Ade, for that, for this session. I feel like we need another one because there is so much more that we need to know as a generation and as a people of African background as well. Just shift our mindset from what we were not even taught. Sometimes it's not what we were shown or what we were taught. Sometimes it's what we were actually need to know. So thank you so much for sharing your day with us as well. We really appreciate your time and your efforts to be with us today. Have I moved here? Yeah. So guys, thank you so much for tuning. We will end it here today. Thank you for staying this long with us. It was necessary that we go beyond our usual time, but thank you so much for being with us for the rest of the show. We will definitely make some time up to organize another, have Minister Ade back and dig deeper into managing our finances and financial investments so that we can show up in this year and live and enjoy the life that God has given us to the fullest, to the fullest. God bless you. Have a great day and a fruitful weekend. God's girls.